On December 9th, Warzone changed the main map from Verdansk to Caldera, and while we'd all been waiting for that new map for months, we all kinda had some fond memories of Verdansk. Whether it's your first win, getting into Bunker 11, or just like messing around with the train, we all had a lot of fun in Verdansk, so it was sad to see it go. And Caldera hasn't been entirely smooth sailing either. People have criticised the lack of cover in large areas of the map, the difficult verticality around peak, like getting stuck on the rocks and stuff, and my personal bugbear that so many buildings don't provide any cover from bullets. So it's only natural that a lot of Warzone players are hoping to see a return of Verdansk, maybe in some kind of rotation like other Battle Royale games have. But I don't think it's going to happen, at least not for a while. Lots of the astute ones amongst you probably already know why this is. Verdansk is a fictional city, but it's heavily based on Donetsk, the largest city in the Donbass region of Ukraine, and an area that Russia has been occupying since 2014. The stadium and the airport are the two easiest landmarks to recognise, or they were before they were largely destroyed in the war, but plenty of the buildings and even elements of the story around Verdansk are heavily inspired by its real-life counterpart. So if Donetsk was captured in 2014, 6 years before Warzone launched in 2020, why would that stop them from returning there? They clearly had no problem using a real-life Warzone as inspiration for a game back then. What's different about it now? It's important to note that Call of Duty has a long history of using real wars and disasters as kind of inspiration for the events of the games, while rarely trying to make anything an authentic portrayal of modern-day conflict. Obviously there's scenes from World War II in plenty of the games, and the type of fighting we know from Vietnam among other conflicts surrounding the Cold War, but then Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare in 2007 started doing things really differently. It was set in the near future of 2011 in an unnamed country, but was clearly taking inspiration from the ongoing wars in Afghanistan, and in particular Iraq, that were happening when the game was being developed. Weapons, situations, environments all seemed to be taken directly from the war zones that we were seeing on television, and real people, not just the military but civilians too, were suffering through in real life. It's important to remember that this was back when Call of Duty had a vaguely anti-war sentiment about it. There used to be like sad quotes about dying in war appearing on screen when you died in the game, and the campaigns would often be about the kind of horrors of war as much as it was about the victories of war, sometimes more so, with like Modern Warfare looking at the potential of terrorists using nuclear weapons on a country. Of course, after Modern Warfare, the campaigns quickly veered away from reality and into complete fantasy. There were like secret groups of super soldiers often fighting comic book villains from both sides, and then we had all of those futuristic games that avoided real world conflict altogether. Then Modern Warfare 2019 decided to revisit the idea of portraying real world suffering in a video game. That campaign had an attack on Piccadilly in London kicking off events, and it was eerily reminiscent of the 2007 London bombings and the subsequent terrorist attacks that are still very much in most British players' memories. It even twisted events in the Middle East like the horrific Highway of Death, where in real life NATO basically committed a war crime, attacking and killing hundreds of people who were fleeing Iraq into Kuwait, destroying thousands of largely defenseless vehicles. In the game, this was somehow presented as a Russian attack, a move that was widely criticised for being revisionist, and I think rightly so. A lot of young people will have only heard of the Highway of Death from the game, and could easily be led to believe that this game's version that it was Russia committing a war crime was what really happened. Then of course Warzone and the Spec Ops missions were set in Verdansk, which was a transparent reference to Donetsk in eastern Ukraine, which is where we started this video. So why would they change now? Why wouldn't they want to bring Verdansk back as a map? I'd argue that the war in Ukraine has changed since Warzone was released, and the public perception of it has changed massively. When Donetsk was annexed in 2014, it was initially kind of a largely bloodless affair and sort of framed as this wanting to be independent. And obviously there was fighting between the Ukrainian army and various paramilitaries, a lot of them backed by Russia, potentially Russian soldiers. The world wasn't paying as much attention to it. But what's been happening in 2022 has been a full-blown invasion by Russia on Ukraine, regardless of whether they call it a special military operation or whatever they want to say. It was an invasion, and there's been countless civilian deaths, war crimes, and scenes of horror being played out on screens around the world. And it's still going on today, like right now while you watch this video. People in Europe and US understand better than ever the kind of horrors that this conflict has brought, and the idea of a company that's already mired in controversy trying to make a profit from letting people have fun fighting in the region seems absolutely abhorrent. Like, if they brought back Verdansk, there'd obviously be a marketing campaign. How would they possibly pull that off? Like, can you imagine them running adverts saying like, hey, go back to Verdansk, go back to this region, and then showing pictures of things like the airport and the stadium, which are very much based on real places in Ukraine? It just seems like that would be absolutely insane. I'm sure there's some people who will be saying, oh, but you could use Call of Duty as a tool to educate people about what's going on in the region. But while you could maybe make that argument about the campaigns, Warzone's not a tool to educate youngsters. It 100% glorifies conflicts, it's designed as something a little bit silly, a bit of fun, and it's really hard to see how people could be okay with presenting the conflict in Ukraine in that way, like in that context. So I don't think we're going to see Verdansk return anytime soon. Recent reports are suggesting that Russia's gearing up for the long haul with their invasion, and while it's ongoing, I can't imagine Activision is going to want to risk that negative press. And I mean, hopefully there's some people working there who just plain see that it would be wrong. Instead, I'm going to imagine that we're going to be playing Caldera and Rebirth basically indefinitely with the current version of Warzone. Then when Warzone 2 or Warzone version 2 or chapter 2 or whatever you want to call it comes around, probably in like March next year, I'm going to assume it's going to have a completely fictional theatre of war that will avoid this problem completely. So let me know in the comments, what do you think? Do you think Verdansk is going to come back? Do you think this is an issue for Activision? And if you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe.